Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we have something very cool to check out. We have not one but two new figures, but on top of that, we actually have two new figures here that are from a sculptor and artist that I've never taken a look at here on the channel. I have promoted this release in a news video, but this is from PalaeoPart, and this is their Edmontosaurus. And not only, obviously, can you see there is one, there is two. We've got a male and a female, and these are said to be in 1/65th scale. And they look really cool. You know, as soon as I had seen these two being promoted on his Instagram account, I instantly was interested, and I'm really excited to now have them here and have a chance to actually take a look at them with you guys. Again, you have basically like a walking pose for both. They do appear to be in the exact same position, and I would say a large portion of the figures are probably the same, but there are definitely some pretty obvious differences that were created by PalaeoPart to differentiate the male from the female. And I think it's also pretty obvious which one would be the male and which one would be the female. But they definitely look really cool here, again, at first glance. So as always, let's jump to a closer look at both right now. So we'll begin with the female of the group first, and you can see, again, the general likeness to an Edmontosaurus is pretty nice. We've got a nice looking head sculpt here. The head is in a slight leaning downward position, almost making it look like maybe it's coming in for a drink or a bite to eat. We've got a variation of brown up here on the top of the head. You can also see as we lead down here, it transitions to a lighter tone, kind of like a khaki-ish sort of tone, but, you know, a very light variation of color right there. And you can see a little more of the brown running up here along the cheek, and you can see more of the brown down here on the underside of the throat. We've got the beak sculpted out quite nicely here on the front of the snout here of our Edmontosaurus. If my camera would focus on it for just a minute. You can also see the nostrils are sculpted quite nicely, and there is some nice fine detail within the beak of the Edmontosaurus. As you lead back, you've got a blue eye with a black pupil there, and again, a little more kind of like light dry brushing seems to have been applied right there in the eye socket area. Very nice looking head sculpt. And as we move back here, you can see a little bit of kind of saggy skin here in the throat region of the Edmontosaurus. We also begin to pick up a darker brown striping effect that moves down through the course of the body. You can see again the scale detail up here on the upper side. Definitely has kind of a rough and rugged looking scaling to it, but that's pretty much what I would expect when it comes to an Edmontosaurus. You can kind of see some nice almost tensing or skin stretching here in the neck and throat region as you lead up. There's no real big turn or anything to the head, but you can see just an ever so slight, like super slight left turn to the head. But as you lead down, you've got a very nice looking front leg here. As you lead through, you can see the muscle definition is nicely sculpted. Leading down, you've got the elbow there in the back of the leg, and then of course the hoof-like appearance that we believe Edmontosaurus had now. So that also looks nice. You can see it's painted with a pretty dark variation of a gray. Very nice fine detail as well as you move down through the course of the leg. Leading back here into the midsection, you can see how the skin is kind of wrinkling and scrunching up here in the stomach region because both legs are closer together as the dinosaur is walking along on this side, so it would be scrunching that skin up. And you can see as we move up here into the stomach region, we transition back to a darker variation of brown. You can again see the nice scale detail. You've got a little bit of girth for sure in the stomach region of that Edmontosaurus. Definitely looks to be a pretty healthy, well-fed female Edmontosaurus. We again have the darker browns, but it seems like even though we have the darker browns, we almost have like a slightly lighter sheet of brown kind of running down the center of some of those darker brown stripes as you move along. We also have the hip bone sculpted out nicely, and as you lead down through the course of the leg, you can see the muscle definition as well as some skin wrinkles here stretching off of the tail. Leading down, you've got the knee here on the front of the leg of the Edmontosaurus, and then of course a nice calf muscle, but it's not overly defined. I think it looks very nice and natural as far as the way that they've portrayed that. And then leading down into the foot sculpt of the dinosaur, you can see again a little bit more nice looking detail and skin detail here running down the front of the leg as you lead down into the toes. And again, the nails are painted with that variation of gray like we had seen on the front leg. And then as you move up here, you again have a nice looking tail sculpt as you lead out. We have a nice turn to the tail leading out there toward the tip. You can see it's leaning and turning toward the dinosaur's left. And then if we look here on the underside of our Edmontosaurus, you can again see a little bit of a different look when it comes to the skin texture, kind of almost like a softer style scaling down here on the underside. And again, nice detailing as you move through, nice skin wrinkles and skin folds and stuff moving through the course of the underside of the Edmontosaurus. Over here on this side, you can see again how the head is just slightly leaning away from us, again giving it that look of the dinosaur maybe making a turn to pick up something to eat off of the ground. You again have that striping effect moving down just like we saw on the initial side. You're not going to see too much difference over here, but one thing you will definitely see that is different is the fact that we've got a little bit more of an open view of this pudgy belly for our Edmontosaurus, because the dinosaur again is walking, taking a nice step. You can see both legs are spread further apart on this side compared to what we had seen on the initial side, but you can see the skin detail again shows that off nicely, as you can see the skin stretching from the stomach into those legs. You again can see the shoulder blade over here as well, and you lead down here into the front leg as the dinosaur's taking a step. Really nice, almost elegance to that step. It looks really, really nice as far as the way that he's sculpted that out. And again, we've got that hoof-like appearance to the front there, and again, the rear leg trailing quite nicely. You've got, again, a very nice looking foot sculpt, nicely painted nails, and then as you lead through, you can see all the same style of muscle definition and stuff, maybe a little bit more defined as far as the calf goes over here, just because I feel like the dinosaur is like currently in the process of potentially lifting this leg, which would be maybe flexing that calf a little bit. And then as you lead up here, you can see how the skin's kind of stretching and, creasing right there as the tail's turning away from us. So again, very nice attention to fine detail right there by PalaeoPart. So the female looks really cool. I'm definitely a fan of this, and I feel like we just don't have enough Edmontosaurus figures out there, so really happy to see a brand new one releasing. And then we've also got the male variant. Now, the majority, as I said, of these figures look to be pretty darn similar, so I would imagine if we actually bring them both up, they look like they're pretty close to the same as far as the sculpt goes, except for some, differences that he has sculpted in here. So straight away, one of the biggest differences that you see is the crest on the male version. There is a very obvious crest up here on the top of the head, which looks really nice. There's also a very different color scheme as far as the face goes, as we have some bluish tones, and then you've got blacks that kind of lead around the eye and lead out toward the beak of the Edmontosaurus, again giving the face of the male a bit of a flashier look, kind of what you would expect when it comes to dinosaurs like this. So very nice touch on PalaeoPart's part, I guess you could say. As you lead back, you can see that we've got kind of like a large ridge line here moving along the back as well. That is another area that is a bit different on the male version from the female version, as you just have like these very bumpy kind of almost ridge-like or scoot-like bumps moving down the back of the dinosaur, and they lead out almost the entire way onto the tail. The other difference is, of course, the coloration moving through, because even though it has a pretty similar color scheme, the same design when it comes to that striping effect, the browns are a little bit different. If you look at the female, you can see the browns are a little bit lighter compared to the darker browns that we see on the body of the male. And the darker browns definitely help that blue face to shine, so that was a pretty nice touch on the part of PalaeoPart to, paint it that way. Pretty much the same as far as the underside goes, kind of. It looks like we have like that light yellowish or tannish sort of a tone down here. And again, you can see all the same style of detailing, same style of skin texture and everything. So I don't think there's too much different as you lead down there. Again, you can see what the opposing side of the head looks like as far as the sculpt and paint goes. Again, pretty much the same over here, again, minus the fact that we have the addition of the crest and these ridges and stuff running down the back, but pretty much the same as we had seen on the female as far as the sculpt goes, because again, I believe it's the same sculpt, just modified to give us a male and female version. But again, difference in paint application, that's for sure. But it's really cool to have, again, both a male and female version here. It's something that you don't often see from companies when they create their dinosaur figures. They don't always give you, except for maybe How Long Good, but they don't always give you the ability to have both a male and female in your collection. And the fact that PalaeoPart has gone ahead and done that here with his initial release of the Edmontosaurus is definitely really cool. Now, size-wise, I would imagine they're probably the same. Yeah, they look like they're pretty much the same size. Maybe, well, actually, I shouldn't say that. The male is a little bit taller than the female, but lengthwise, they definitely look to be about the same length, but height, the male definitely has a little bit of extra height, probably because of the ridges there running along the back, but you can see it's definitely a little bit taller. So as far as a size goes, we will measure the length only on one because it doesn't seem to differ. You can see it's about 6 3/4 inches, or right around 17 centimeters, maybe a little bit over. And then for a height on the female, just shy of about 2.5 inches, or closing in on 6.5 centimeters. But for the male, oh yeah, definitely a little bit of difference. For the male, we're over 2.5 inches and approaching 7 centimeters, but not quite there. So even though it's not a drastic difference, there is definitely a little bit of difference when it comes to the height aspect, at least from the male to the female. But for a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack PalaeoPart, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line, showing you that at 1/65th scale, these Edmontosaurus figures aren't absolutely huge. They're definitely a little bit on the smaller side, but even still, being that they are Edmontosaurus, and at that scale, they do still have a decent size, because Edmontosaurus was a pretty darn big dinosaur. And for an idea of the size, I think the best visual we have here is the PalaeoPart there next to them. You can see they're pretty similar in size. The PalaeoPart is a little bit bigger, but overall they're not too far off in size, so I would say that sits these Edmontosaurus, if you are familiar with the Mattel Jurassic World line, I would say roughly in the, Attack Pack, Danger Pack, Wild Pack size range. Now we've taken one of the Edmontosaurus out and left only one in here to do just a few random comparisons. You can see there is the Schleich going face to face with our Edmontosaurus, the female version, to give you another idea of the size. As well as the Collect Day Deluxe Dimetrodon, yet again showing you that the Edmontosaurus here isn't all that large in comparison to the Dimetrodon. We've also got the Safari LTDU Tyrannus here for yet another comparison. And here we have the Howlong Good Ouranosaurus next to the PalaeoPart Edmontosaurus. And you can see the Howlong Good Ouranosaurus is a little bit larger, but they're not too far off in size. So if you happen to have that Ouranosaurus, you'll have a pretty good idea, I think, roughly of the size of the Edmontosaurus. And for one final comparison, I was going to bring in some Edmontosaurus figures to kind of display with this, but most of my Edmontosaurus are at a bit of a larger scale, so they would probably dwarf this one significantly, so it wouldn't really make such a great comparison. But for our comparison here with another figure that is kind of similar in size, but obviously a little bit larger, we have the old Batat Parasaurolophus stepping in to size up next to our Edmontosaurus. So these brand new PalaeoPart Edmontosaurus male and female variants are really cool. I love anytime we get a brand new sculptor, a brand new artist on the scene releasing figures, I'm always very excited about that. And even more so excited to see new Edmontosaurus figures, because even though we do have a few out there already, we just don't have enough. And it is a beautiful species of dinosaur, so I like seeing more and more portrayals of it, more and more releases of it. And these two are really nice, honestly. Sculpt-wise, I think they look very good. There's some really nice fine detail throughout. He sculpted out all of the skin wrinkles and skin folds, muscle definition, everything that you would want to see pretty darn nicely. And on top of that, we have a nice naturalistic walking pose as the dinosaur moves along, just kind of walking casually, leaning its head down. So there's no sort of a dramatic or dynamic pose going on, but it is pretty much as you would expect for a nice natural, maybe walking and feeding or drinking scene. And the fact that we have a male and female here also kind of gives you the feel of like a herd, maybe of, or even maybe just a pair, but maybe if you bought quite a few of these, you could have a really cool herd of Edmontosaurus just kind of walking along nice and leisurely, which is really cool as well. The paint schemes that he's given them are nice and naturalistic, I would say, and the fact that he has slightly differentiated the variations of browns from the male to the female is also a very nice touch. I like that because I think it's a nice dose of realism for both of the figures. And of course, the fact that he has sculpted out different aspects from the male to the female was really cool as well, especially including the crest on the Edmontosaurus, which looks really nice, and including those vibrant blues in the face was a nice touch. And on top of that, seeing as these are in a smaller size range than you often see for most Edmontosaurus figures, it makes them a very conveniently sized figure to add to pretty much any collection, which is also a plus. So as a whole, I must say I'm quite impressed with his initial release. Definitely two really cool figures, nice species choice, and the fact that he has released them in both a male and female version was really cool and something that, again, most people don't do, so I have to commend PalaeoPart on that. So if you are interested in picking some of these up for yourself, I will include a link in the description to the Etsy shop of PalaeoPart where you can purchase yourself these Edmontosaurus figures right now. So make sure you check that link, go grab these guys if you are interested, and also like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.